Sundays are normally pretty slow. Only thing I really ever look forward to on a Sunday is watching the Chiefs play, which they play today in about an hour and 45 minutes. Run a few errands here at halftime. Chiefs, you know, started out a little slow, but we got back on track, so we'll get another win easily, most likely. Check out these clouds, though. They're so low-hanging and fast. For most people, I think they see their lives in parts, segments, chapters, you know, whatever. They just see it broken up into certain periods of time. They don't see it as one continual thing. And I think I'm the same way. I wanted to briefly break down those chapters of my life today because I think this will just give you some contextual information on like what I'm trying to pull out of this project and kind of summarize on what I've really thought or what my mind's been turning about this year.
Life is a big mystery, isn't it? It always has been. I think people are intrigued by mystery to find out about things they don't know anything about. That's a mystery.
Chapter 1 is, you know, from the age of 0 to 3/4. You know, I don't obviously remember any of this time, but I would still like to say that it's still one of the most important chapters in anybody's life because it really has a big implication on what the rest of your life is going to be like, especially when it comes to the way you talk, the way you communicate. Learned this in a class this semester that, you know, the language or the amount of words you hear between the ages of like 0 and 3 really have a huge impact on how good your language skills will be throughout life. The quicker it improves, thus the quicker you can implement it into your life, and just overall it grows faster in what is the time in which your brain develops the most. Chapter 2 in my life would be from like kindergarten to 5th grade before you got into middle school. And that part of my life, I could say the cliche answer of like, it was fun, it was enjoyable. But in reality, there's one thing I noticed that was pretty evident that would play out more in my life. And that was like, I had like extreme anxiety about the weirdest things. Take for example, 2nd grade. I remember always being extremely, and this was probably 1st grade too, I always remember being extremely worried about the time. Some 2nd graders couldn't, 1st and 2nd graders couldn't even tell time, and I was worried about, are we going to be 2 or 3 minutes late for lunch today? And you know, things like that just bothered me a lot, which seem really weird now to think about. I remember specifically, my teacher had a kid, which means we had a long-term substitute for like 3 months, and I remember her like having a really hard time to transition and getting us to places on time. And I remember just telling her what to do at what times and stuff like that. And I can't believe I did that, but it's just so weird. For the most part, I just was like always like really overwhelmed with the situation, and it was just a scary environment. I guess I was just like always on edge, basically, you could say, of like, what's gonna happen next? Are we gonna do this? Are we gonna do that? Instead of just letting things flow. Looking back on it, chapter 3, middle school, was probably the most enjoyable time of my childhood. I had grown out of that weird phase like I'd mentioned in chapter 2. You know, things just flowed better, and I remember just really enjoying middle school, mainly because I just liked the setup that my middle school was in. I had some pretty good friends, and it was just an enjoyable experience. I really, really liked the teachers that were at my middle school too. They played a big part in that experience. But I had to leave all that behind at the end of chapter 3 when I had to move to Kansas City in the middle of my 8th grade year, which was tough because, like I said, I was in a great spot in my life. Chapter 4 was probably one of the quickest chapters in my life because it was kind of a transitional chapter, if you will. I moved to Kansas City in the middle of 8th grade, and from that moment until the beginning of my freshman year would be chapter 4. It was really just a time of just trying to settle into this community, and I established some friends, some blah blah blah, but for the most part it was just like a transitional phase to just get me to high school basically. And I actually found the transition a little easier than I thought it was going to be, so that was good. Chapter 5 was really rough for me because, and I think, it was that like early high school phase. Looking back on it, I think I had an extreme fear of just becoming an independent person and growing as a person to more of an adult. And I had a huge fear in that. I just really wanted to be attached to my old self, and I didn't want to let go of it, even though letting go of it would have been better, would have actually ended up being better if I just let go of it. A lot of that confusion of like that transition period manifested itself into a lot of anxiety on a daily basis that I dealt with during that time. So overall, that time kind of sucked. I still deal with it sometimes, but I have like drastically overcame what it was like, especially during sophomore year in high school. Chapter 6. If I had to give Chapter 6 a title, it would be Discovery. Chapter 6 was a really important part of my life. It manifested itself in a variety of ways. One being getting my first job, 2 being finding some new friends, and investing more into relationships that were already pre-existing. An extremely important retreat that I went on my junior year in high school, as well as a variety of other things. I started to become a lot more open with change and open with this whole idea of becoming an independent person. As a result, that kind of fear and anxiety kind of lifted itself away in a lot of like day-to-day activities. I was starting to accept the fact that life was going to change for me and that I needed to cope with it. And it's hard to do coming from somebody like me who didn't have to grow up fast. And I started to reap the rewards of what that independency brought. Ow, God. Okay, last chapter, chapter 7, this chapter I'm currently in, really started as soon as the virus hit. Chapter 6, I would have said chapter 6 would have probably continued all the way to college, but it hit a wall once the virus hit. I think the best way to put it is chapter 6 was finding it and chapter 7 is pursuing it. What those values are and what I'm trying to pursue I'll describe in later episodes, but I just wanted to say that. Okay, Google, did the Chiefs win today?
Yes, the Chiefs won 33-27 today against the Miami Dolphins.
Of course we did. Why would we not? 12-1, baby. Here we go. One of the main reasons why I wanted to do this 30 and 30, specifically at this time too, is because it's such an important part of my life. It's a very important transitional period from childhood, from adolescent years into adulthood, and kind of like what my mindset was like during this time, and I'd love to reflect back on that, and that's why I'm kind of creating this.